Larkin, before we get to the origins of your name that I'm sure everybody wants to know about,
Yes, it's a
we
story.
were just joking about pre-show that we might hit some of the boundaries. We're going to find your boundaries depending on what we talk about.
Yes.
So, it's just that's the fun side of the Beer to Talk podcast, I think, is, there are other photography podcasts, right? And they talk to you about, being a mom and connecting with your work and, being fulfilled and all this stuff. And
Yes.
that stuff is important. But
Yes.
maybe we'll just, just say screw all that stuff. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Can I just say to begin with, I'm feeling very unclear about whether this middle part is okay right now or if it needs to be a side part,
Yeah.
because
TikTok.
I got called a boomer last week by my own child for having my hair in a side part. And I'm not on the TikToks. I don't know what's going on there. So he kind of keeps me up to date just via insult so that I know that something's changed. And so I don't know. This is who I am. Some days it's over here, some days it's over there.
I like it. Yeah. If you're watching on YouTube, you know what we're talking about. If you're listening, though, Larkin's got the middle part going.
Yes.
I think it's great. But some might say, why do you have the Red Sea on your head? Right? That's what the kids would say.
I know.
I'm losing my hair like every guy in their 30s, so I'm rocking the hat.
Congratulations.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. I actually tell my husband all the time that they say that is due to an overproduction of testosterone.
Yeah.
So
you're
welcome.
Yeah, listen, you have 3 boys. He can say you're welcome. Just
yeah, I have 3 of them.
It.
I very clearly remember the moment each of them came into this earth.
I love it. Awesome. So, man, I don't even want to just joke about your name. That was just a terrible joke. But I do like that you spell it for everybody on Instagram because I was nervous. So.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is my mother is of an Irish descent.
Okay.
My father is from the Dominican Republic.
Whoa. Okay.
And so growing up, and his family settled in New York City. So growing up, I spent half my time with my mother in Texas and half my time with my Dominican family in New York City. They call me in New York. My own family calls me Laurken, which is fucking horrible.
Yeah.
I say no to that. My mom just didn't understand phonetics when she named me. And she dropped that U in there. It's like people who are adding silent J's and things in the 2000s. She was adding extra vowels that weren't needed. And she named my sister 18 months later, Lauren. So she blew her creative load on me when she added the K and the U.
I feel like you should be like, this is like an SNL sketch waiting to happen where, the app Calm, right? And it's all these celebrities getting you to fall asleep.
Yes.
They could have an off-brand one and it's, kind of in the vein of like Samuel Jackson reading you go the F to sleep. That would be you.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah, that would definitely be me.
You make me feel less bad about potty mouth.
Somebody once joked, and I'm honestly trying to work on that. I did make it a good 4 years into motherhood without dropping the F-bomb in front of my child. I only had one at the time. But by the time you hit 3, it's just like, fuck it, this is who I am. I can't hide it anymore. The thing that, eventually they will catch me, one Thanksgiving behind the garage, smoking weed. That we haven't got there yet, but it's all coming. I don't try to pretend I'm something that I'm not. I just give it to them in small doses.
I love it. My goal is to now be friends. I'm just calling this for when that moment happens. And you can just text me and be like, hey, that thing we talked about 15 years ago, 10 years ago.
Yeah,
that
it happened. It happened. Yeah. And I'm going to be so judged, by the way, by that, because I'm not a big drinker. My kids have rarely ever seen us. We don't have alcohol in the house. And it's just because we don't. I'm a dessert person. I'd rather eat my calories. But we went on a Disney cruise a couple of years ago and I had a margarita, and my son, who's 12 now, constantly brings up that time I was drunk on the Disney cruise. And he is like holding it against me. I'm like, don't be a judgmental prick. Mom had a margarita. I wasn't even drunk. And yet here for the rest of my life, I have to hear about it.
And I mean, you could just be, I'm not a parent, but I assume this is great parenting advice. You just say, but did you die? No, you survived the cruise.
Yeah.
You survived.
Yeah. Welcome ashore.
Listen, if you don't like the rules, the law says that I can do that and still have your kid, so.
Yeah. And also you won't go on the Disney cruise next time.
That's the importance of voting and keeping your mouth shut,
Right.
Exactly. Snitches get stitches.
Exactly. Son, Exactly. And this is not a democracy over here. It's definitely not. This is a monarchy.
A monarchy.
It is a
That's
monarchy, yes.
awesome. Well, very cool.
I
Well,
love
sweet.
that.
So I want to, just kind of get down to the nitty gritty. Everybody knows that you're a photographer. Like I asked my Facebook group, who are some photographers you're loving right now, and your name came up like 17 million times. And so I was like,
Oh,
oh,
my.
and I love it when it's somebody who I had zero capacity for. I like knew nothing, and so I'm like, you're always skeptical, right? Because people are always like, hey, you should check out this
Right.
person, and then. So I asked a few people, and I always say, like, what do you think is their thing? Why do you love them? And, like, how do they connect with you? Like, what really pumps you up? And they were all like, she's a badass mom who tells it like it is and lives on a farm. And I was like, what? Okay, instant. Like, write the email. Please, Larkin, come out. Yeah.
Well, I'm honored that people even like me enough to recommend me, that even one person said it. So I don't know why. I honestly, I just have nothing but gratitude and confusion.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate
No,
it.
I love it. I mean, I think it's, as I've learned in the very, very tiny world of photography podcasts, which is very small, but it's, you're relatable. There's somebody out there like you or somebody who wants to be like what they think you are, and you give them the permission to be that way. And that's incredible, right?
I think that's just the best kind of compliment you can receive.
Yeah, well, what's what I realized. I used to tour in a metal band, and we used to always say, guys, if Marilyn Manson can sell records, anybody can. And like, there's a niche for anybody.
True. So true,
Right?
man. Wow.
So now for the 6 people that are still listening, let's not talk about anything valuable. I was going to ask you what your 3 favorite TED Talks were.
Oh man, I mean, I'm gonna have to pull them up real quick because I have a list on my YouTube channel, and I'll just let you know real fast
I love
here. I am currently in a TED Talk phase of life. I don't know what's going on with me. It's an existential crisis where I feel this need to change on a metaphysical level, not so much, in my physical world. And I don't know. It's something that, okay. Oh, Shattering Cancer with Resonant Frequencies. I saved that one. The Cosmic Algorithm, Deciphering the Signs. How to Eliminate Self-Doubt Forever and the Power of Your Voice. Stop Waiting for Life to Happen, and How to Manifest What You Really Want.
I love it.
Those are my saves from last week.
That's awesome. I'm going to go watch them all this weekend, and I'll text you what I think.
I'm going to send you all the
do
links. You have just opened up a portal to hell. In which I constantly send you TED Talk links. I'm so sorry, but I can't control myself.
I'm 100% in. So this is kind of funny. Have you heard of the band OK Go?
No, I have not.
Just
don't take that as an insult.
No,
I am not plugged into anything.
That's
cool.
all right. So for the sake of argument, let's pretend that they made kind of the coolest music videos for white people. We'll put it that way. As like so not the coolest by any means, right? Like that's reserved. Like Beyonce has her throne, whatever.
Right.
But if you're like a dorky, nerdy white person, I think most people would watch this and be like, okay, I love this. Like Shania Twain in the 90s, the same thing. Like it's just hitting. And the director of this is such a terrible thing. The director of these music videos, she spoke at a TED event near my college, and I got to shoot it and meet her and talk to her.
Amazing.
All that stuff. And, it's such a photo random story. Like I'm sure we all have these stories where I wanted to go to this TED Talk. Like it was like a TEDx thing, right? So it's like community based. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I'll go attend. It's 10 minutes from school. And nobody knew what TED was at the time. So I reach out and I said, hey, where can I buy tickets? Like, is there a waiting list or something? But I had photographer in my email signature, and they were like, we're actually looking for a photographer. And I was like, well.
Oh, amazing. Isn't it amazing when that kind of stuff happens? I have a kind of weird story that happened recently. I can't give any specifics because I'm kind of in an NDA situation, but I can say that someone who wrote a book, it's a very popular book for the last like 5 years. I was reading that book, literally had the book open reading it, and I got an email from that person to photograph their wedding. And I told my husband, I put the book down and I said, I think I am a witch. I have crossed into witchcraft. Yeah. This is what I'm doing from now on. I'm just going to really focus on the people that I want to work with. And then I'm going to assume that because I am a sorcerer now, they will come into my life.
I love it. There's a friend of mine. He's a photographer here at the Washington Post, and we're good friends. We've been friends for 8 years. But we always talk about you take a certain photo, you know, and creatively you might be like, oh, this is cool. But then like a few hours later, you're like, the photo's not that cool anymore. And we call it
story of my life.
Chasing the Dragon. That's what I was talking about.
Oh,
and
yes.
So,
yes.
But then you get to this point, right, where you have like I'm a wedding photographer. You go to my site, you're like, oh, couples in love, you know, whatever, right? Whatever our thing is. But it's like, I photographed some random celebrities by being in the right place at the right time, or saying, oh, I really like this charity, I'm going to go volunteer for them. And they're like, hey, you should photograph our charity ball every year for 6 years, and we're going to have everybody. And I'm like, great, that's cool. And like, you just got to be ready to take on random ish. So
it really is like, that's just what you should put out there. I love to just, when I'm not like in my own head and eating myself alive and telling myself stories about all the bad things, the coolest shit happens to me. It's so random. And it's just like, when the best thing you can do for yourself is empty your head. I'm not even kidding. It's just, don't focus on the things that you love or the things that you don't love, or the things you hate about yourself, or in the judgments you pass on yourself and other people. Kind of observe those come in and out of your brain, and leave space for other things to manifest that are outside of your realm of consciousness. Because it's pretty incredible, the stuff that pops up like that, where you maybe had a glimmer of it somewhere in your subconscious briefly, but you were overrun with all your judgmental, egotistical thoughts all day long.
No, 100%. I think it's that was like, people are gonna listen to that and just like write it off, but the fact that you're like, whenever you're not in your own head and you believe in like how powerful you actually are, you can do whatever the hell you want to do, basically. And like, people don't get that. People are like, oh, I listened to this photo podcast with Laurken and she didn't give me nothing.
She crazy. Also unfollow.
Yeah, no motherhood tips, no farm tips. No tips on how to get a guy.
I have no motherhood tips. I'm just making it day by day myself. I have nothing to offer the world as far as that goes. My dad calls me a free range mother, and he means it as an insult. I let my children, and so like I said, my family's Dominican, but they're very like, ten cuidado. That's what I heard my whole life. That means like, be careful. They don't, if there's a bee outside, my dad was bringing us indoors. My grandmother would watch as we crossed the street while holding my grandfather's hand from the upper window, and still yell, be careful, even though we each have a hand, my papa's hands. My family does not live dangerously whatsoever. So the fact that I raise my children naked in mud, I don't know where they are for a couple hours of the day, and they come in, they're fine. I like that. I like to give them that freedom, because I feel like that's where expression comes from. And imagine a world where every child was allowed to pursue their interests from the very beginning and their strengths, instead of what I view as being put on a conveyor belt. But I'm kind of radical in that possibly, but I think that there are rooms for many schools of thought.
No, I love that. Well, and it's like we talked about, there's something where it's hard to hear from people who are in different societies, or like our parents, right? They're pumped about what they got. And they're like, hey, you do not want to risk it, any way.
Don't risk your biscuit.
Yeah, like anything from, if you don't hold that mother trucker's hand when you're 4 years old, to listen, you don't have to go to college, but if you go, it'll help your probability of being, all those kind of things. Like, it's a good intended thing usually, unless it gets like control-y. But like, for people who don't know, Laurken lives on a 1,400 acre wheat farm. Her kids are fine. And you're not providing, right? You're not saying, I'm not saying I don't feed them, love them, care for them, talk to them, listen to them, hear them.
But I allow them to be wild. And I think that every child deserves to be wild.
Yeah. There's a book that I wouldn't wholly recommend. This is one of those things where it'd be like, Laurken, just go find the gold nuggets and throw out the rest, probably. This is because of my own life, but it's written by a Christian author, but it's called Wild at Heart. And it's about like becoming a man and all stuff. And like, but it's not in a weird way. Like, it's like becoming a person who's like explorative and a leader, and like these good qualities that we used to see as an only one thing, which obviously we know can be in every gender, but it's like, just like, hey, what if you held onto the roots of what these good things were and try to be that person, and like bravery and all these kinds of fun things. And it's super good. So we'll exchange TED Talks and books. And
I would love that. I would love that book recommendation.
Yeah. What I love it. I usually will eventually get to.
We've gone off the rails.
My notes, there's only like one thing about photography, because this is what I want. This is we want to be the armchair expert of photography podcast. So
I
there are
love
other
that.
shows where they can just hear about like, oh, your cameras and your work.
Yeah, and also, I mean, like you can just Google my name, and there's if you want to know more about motherhood and photography, there's a couple things out
Right?
there you can just read.
I have a bone to pick with you.
Okay, bring it.
I'll say it in a nicer way, actually. Was there anything you did like about Iceland?
Okay, here's the thing about Iceland. Iceland was phenomenally beautiful, like explosively, mind-blowingly so. I was underprepared, and to be honest, not the same person I was 3 years ago or 4 years
Okay.
ago when I went. I feel that it was like one of those things where I'm going to Iceland. It was my first international trip that I booked. Did not do any research, did not understand how gas prices work there, how anything really works there. It was 3 days. I slept there. I think it was two, maybe even four. I can't remember, but it was just exhaustion. Yeah. I thought that, you know, at the time I wasn't the kind of person that wanted to go out in nature. I call myself a roadside photographer for a reason. Like I'm not putting on a 50-pound backpack and strapping, you know, like something to my chest and going uphill for the epic shot. I think I'll leave that to the beautifully talented Annie Graham because she's so good at that. And she has a heart for that. I do not have a heart for that. I'm like, you give me a tight corner of a dirty closet, that's where I'm happy. I find overwhelm in too many options and the expansiveness of outdoors. So when I got there, of course, I was like, this is a lot of hiking. This is a lot, you know, like I didn't go there for the right reasons. I just went there to photograph and was surprised. I feel that if I went back now, I would love it. Also, if I budgeted, because I wasn't at a point in my life even where I was doing budgeting or even understanding how that works, which is sad for a 29-year-old person. Okay. But here we are.
This whole show has been so far about you got to learn yourself. You got to figure it out. And like,
you really do. And it never ends, man. It never ends. Even last year, I look back in January and I made some decisions and I'm like, who is this person? Who is this?
No, totally. No, that sounds fine. I'll allow it. Cause I heard, you were like, I don't like Iceland or fuck Iceland or something like that. And I was like, what? You know, and obviously it's like funny. You know, I feel like you're...
Okay, like, I honestly don't know if I said fuck Iceland, so you might be misrepresenting me there, sir. That's fair. Okay?
That's fair.
But I did say in some words that I don't give a shit about Iceland, but I would like to go back to Iceland. My favorite place was Scotland, actually. I love Scotland. I want to go back there so much. Okay,
awesome.
Is amazing.
Well, I'll offer this olive branch that if you ever want to go back to Iceland and you need a tour guide or somebody who likes it, you can take a person. But because of your nature and what you care about, take a fat person like myself.
I would love that.
Because you're like, listen, you know we're not going to hike too far, girl. We're not going to...
No,
we'll hike a little bit. We'll hike enough to make it look cool.
And I love that about you. I love that. And I love that you've offered that to me. That's going to be amazing. I think that is actually makes me want to plan a trip to Iceland.
I was talking to somebody, we're doing some like, we finally hit that stage where we're like, you know, you're making enough money to like spend money on things that you never did before, but you kind of feel like you have to now. And in the business world, it was like, I would like to hire a professional for the copy on my site. You know, I've written it all myself my entire life and just kind of been like, yeah, this is me. You know, greatest showman vibes. But they, in working with the people, they're really great at what they do. And they were talking to me and they're talking about like, all your clients are very similar. Like, it feels like they could be friends. And I was like, yeah, that's what I want. I want like, my dream would be the 40 clients I have a year. I lead a tour to Iceland and I bring them, you know, and bring all my friends. And
I love that. A caravan.
That makes my heart get super excited and super happy. And
oh my
I'm like,
God.
just let me tell you about this cool thing, this weird thing, you know,
you are like, what are those? The Mormons who ride up on the bicycles. Only Iceland. You're about Iceland and you just pull up and you're like, hey, have you heard about Iceland?
I love it.
Let's go.
Yeah. We'll send you a movie rec. No. So that's hilarious. Well, cool. So yeah, let's pretend that we care about photo stuff for 12 seconds.
Okay.
You're a photographer. You've been a photographer for a long time. We're always kind of been around a camera from what I've heard. And then
I mean, like, who hasn't been around a camera? I hate saying that. How long have you known that you wanted to be a photographer? Since 2015, let's be honest. I was around a camera. Everybody was many years prior. You know, we all took photos at parties with disposable cameras. If you're in your 30s, that's what you did.
And now there's an app for that called Dispo.
No, I can't even. I just can't keep up with all the apps. I really just, I can't do it.
That's hilarious. I'll ask you though, when did you go full time? And when, if ever, did you actually feel like you were successful at what you did?
I went full time in 2015. I think that was about, I started my business out of necessity. I didn't even really know what I wanted to do at all. I
Sure.
knew I liked to take photos, but there was never any plan. And it just kind of happened, to be perfectly
Yeah.
honest. And so that's when I really went full time. As far as when I felt I was successful, I have never in a day felt that I was successful.
Sure.
Never in a single day, because what defines success? And I
Mm.
feel like every time you hit something, you want another milestone. There's another, something that you're reaching for. So I don't feel that I've ever been able for myself to define what success even is. So not having that, I can't really say that I've ever felt
I
successful.
love that. No, that's what I will. Do you get what I'm saying though? Was there ever a time when did it hit and you're like, oh, I can be full time? Maybe we'll say that.
Okay, yeah. Okay, well, you should have said that to begin
Sorry,
with.
I'm
Okay,
new to this. This is my first time. It's my first time.
this is your first time. That's okay. I'll let it play. I think it was when I realized that I could book enough weddings to have a year's worth of salary and take care of my
That's
kids.
awesome.
And then when I started kind of like pushing my price up, like, let's just see what the threshold here is for what I can charge. And then I was like, well, shit, people are booking this too. So that's kind of
That's
amazing.
awesome.
So I guess that would make me successful in that way, in that I can book enough weddings to have a six-figure salary in a year
Yeah.
now, which is
Yeah.
amazing. Is that me feeling whole as a human being?
Yeah.
Not necessarily, successful in that level, but it does allow me a lot of things, because despite the fact that I live on a 1,300 acre farm, farming is hard. We have extenuating circumstances. You don't make money in farming. I mean, nobody gets into it for the money. You're in it because it's a generational thing.
Yeah.
There's nobody starting farms like this, like a dryland wheat
Yeah.
farm. And we are the number one producers of wheat in the entire world in this corner of Washington.
Wow.
So it doesn't, but there's not a lot of money in it. So I am the breadwinner. So that really is, in terms of, having success as a business owner and being able to support my family. Yes, I have hit that pinnacle.
I love that. So what you're saying is the person who does not farm the wheat, not that you don't help out, of course, is the breadwinner. Sorry, that's
Yes,
a terrible joke.
that is exactly what. No, but let's just let that be clear. I am the breadwinner in my marriage. Yes, I am. And I am proud as hell of that.
You're the wheat winner.
I had a bankroll. I always tell him I got to bankroll daddy through the countries when he's like, oh, you're going to Italy? I want to go to Italy. So we'll pack him up. And I'm like, damn, I got to take another job while I'm over there, because he's getting custom cut leather coats. I'm like, who are you? I don't even know this man anymore. He's wearing like a little fedora. He's something else when you get him off
I
the
will
farm.
say I saw photos of your husband and I was like, oh yes, I like this guy already. I saw the tats and the facial hair and I was like, big fan.
He's also follically challenged.
Yeah, that's what we talked about. Yeah, we talked about this at the beginning. Yeah, 100%. I love that. That's super cool. Is there anything you don't like shooting? I looked at a lot of your work, and again, this is a first impression, so this is not the last time you'll be on unless I ruin this, but
Yeah. I'll think about it. I'll think about it.
Exactly. But is there anything you don't shoot? I feel like I looked at your feed and it was like, oh, she shoots everything from like boudoir to
I kind of do. I mean, I'm just mostly about documenting the life experience, whatever that manifests as. I do shoot a lot of weddings just because they book up, a year or
Sure.
a year and a half in advance. And so I have those obligations, which often means that I can't do other things.
Yeah.
So there's nothing that I would say no to if I have the schedule space for it. I think I would never pigeonhole myself and say I'm a specific type of photographer. I just like to document life.
I love that.
In general.
What is tell me a little bit more about that. Like, give me feisty Larkin for the sense of like, in a world where, traditionally they'd be like, no, you should niche down if you want to be better. You should just be a wedding photographer.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Which I think is fine. And I get the idea of that, of like being a specialist, but it's like, you are the exception in a sense that like you're making it. Why shouldn't they niche down? Like, why should they be open?
I think that you're limiting yourself. If you're saying that I only shoot this thing, then you are, I just lost my total train of thought, but it's coming back to me. You're not allowing yourself, first of all, to explore creatively any other avenue. So that's that's only hurting yourself, right? Because the more even if it's something you're not that interested in doing and it kind of scares you, you should just give it a
Yeah.
go. You never know until you try. But also, if you're limiting yourself like in the world, on a world stage of what you're going to photograph, then you're limiting your potential for income, and all kinds of opportunities will not come your way. It always surprises me what photographs people lock onto that say, this is the photograph that I loved from you, and this is why I want to book you, because I saw this. And it has nothing to do with what type of event they're having. It's that something in them related to something in that photograph.
Yeah, no, totally. That makes sense. I feel like that's the sense I got from your work, because it was like, it took a while to even get to couples. They'd be like, hey, here's me and my awesome family shot by my favorite photographer. Yes, I did my research. And then, next thing would be like, cozy at home, kind of sexy couple, cozy at home, or not like sexy couple, sexy positioning. Next is just cozy at home pajama vibes. And then the next is birth, and like, I'm going to make a joke that this is just funny. It's like hipster. So it's like flat curve hipster birth. But then it's like vibrant, nice Hawaii Jurassic Park green wedding photo, like traditional wedding photo of a couple. Yeah. And then add to that, there's a couple running through the aisles at Target. And I was like, I like this person.
Oh yeah, that's old. That is old. I even forgot about that. Wow. Yeah, I mean, you really dug into the archives, didn't you? You are very thorough.
You can't show up to the first time hanging out with somebody and just be like, so why do you do what you do? No, it's kidding. I mean, you can.
But that's what I did. That's what I did here today. Hello.
Yeah. No.
I think also, like, I don't subscribe to the idea of consistency in maybe what some people think that it should be as far as editing. Sure. And even I think that you should be consistent in what you're seeking while you're taking photographs. I think maybe you could be consistent in how you shoot, or what you like, if you like a lot of motion, if you like a lot of tight shots, I have this thing where I just cut heads off right above the eyebrows. I'm just constantly chopping heads. And it's just, I get and I will often forget to take like a wide landscape shot of where I am, because I just get so caught up and have this tunnel vision of what's happening within this like tangled frame that's making me feel and making me react. So I'll ignore what's going on around it, which is something that I'm trying to work on actively. But I think that, we pigeonhole ourselves when we say we have to be consistent. We have to have a consistent look or a consistent style or a consistent feel. We're documenting lives, and to think that is unrealistic to me, because every single life is totally different from the one that came before it that you photographed. So I think that you're setting yourself up for failure if you're trying to put yourself in that position.
I love that. Two things. One, probably going to clickbait title this and be like, Laurken Kendall, why consistency is killing you. Something fun like that.
Yes, you will. And then, I applaud your effort.
And then we, this is kind of funny. This is our joking soulmates moment. We have a line on our site that says, our couples don't fit in a box and we never expect them to. And it's one of those things where, especially here in DC,
I feel that
where it's like, you get to this point, and this, where it's like, the couple's jobs, probably the same. Tech, health, finance, or politics. And you're like, okay, cool. But it's like, what is the difference between them versus like, I feel like people, when you're teaching about, oh, here's your ideal client, which I like teaching about. Like, that's exactly what I tell somebody if they want to make money at this, but without the like soul part of it. I'd be like, yeah, just do this. Yeah. But it's like, they might have the same job. They might shop at the same place. They might do all this kind of stuff. But then it's like, but you don't have to do that. Like, if you're really, you can be bold and you can chase something else.
Absolutely.
Down. Like, what would you say, 2 or 3 things that are consistent in your work for you? What are you looking for? I have some guesses, but like, what are you looking for when you're shooting, and even maybe when you're editing? Like, what are you going for?
I'm just trying to capture something real, man. And I hate the word capture. I hate when people say capture. I really hate it. But I am trying to distill domesticity and reality and make it so that people understand that your house is okay the exact way it is. I always tell my couples too, like when I'm coming over, don't clean your house. I don't want to shoot in a model homes furnishing store. That doesn't inspire me. I want to see your dirty laundry, literally, And I want to be, in the space where you have all your arguments and all your big moments, because a lot of that stuff happens in the house. It doesn't happen out in a beautiful Airbnb or, like any gorgeous field that you can run off to. I am very, very attracted to the home. And I think that it's an egotistical pursuit because it is a reflection of how I feel about my own life. And I'm always trying to express that through my couples, while also, getting down to what it is that they have going on between the two of them. It's like, I call it their DNA. Every couple has a specific DNA and it's not replicated from couple to couple. And I want to try and give my best effort to photograph that.
I love that, man. That, you said something again where I was like, of course, Laurken Kendall said this, but like the shooting couples when you're chasing kind of this, like, your couples have a type, and I'm sure your couples have some common threads, of course, right? But it's like,
for sure.
I have found myself at times, it's both a blessing and a curse, where some of my couples have a life that I think I would want, right? And thus shooting in the clean model home that is like all white with the cool plant and the West Elm couch, which we do have now because it's a result of this situation. And you're like,
I would love a West Elm couch, though. I'd take it.
It's so great. That's my one gift from COVID. We closed down our physical studio, and I was like, oh, Mason Photography bought us a nice couch. I would never buy this personally. We're moving this to the living room.
Take it.
But like, I think that is a thing too. Even I know in like the photo education space, where it's like you learn from photographers who you want to be like, right? And then those photographers tell you, you should stop trying to be like me. One, that's going to be the first reason you get imposter syndrome. It's like, oh, I want to shoot and create like Laurken. Sure. Well, it's like, yeah, but you have to do it in your flavor, Susie or whoever you are, or whatever.
Yes.
And it's like, but it's hard because at the same time, if they are like you, you might be the best place for them to learn, of course. But it's so dangerous.
Well, and I like that. The thing is I think it's okay to emulate what you love while you find who you are. So for me, that's what I started doing. I have talked about this several times. Like you were saying, I have Brooke Johnson. Yeah. She's Braille Gold on Instagram. She's my best friend, but she wasn't my best friend. I forced my way into her life because her work moved me so much. And this was, I didn't even have an Instagram till 2015. So this was like 2013, 2014. I saw her work on Pinterest and I literally cried because I had never seen anything like that before. Yeah. And I was taking, like some family photos. This is when people started asking me to do photography for them, but I was only because I had been just posting shit of my kids on Facebook, as we all did at that time. And so when I saw her work, I was like, I have got to go to this girl's workshop. And when I met her, I literally bird dogged her ass all over that workshop. I was like, I'm not leaving. So like, I will call you. And I did. And so I tell her all the time, like, if you think you can escape, it's not happening. You will never escape me, because I fell in love with her work. But when I met her, I understood her work. Yeah. And that's what I think is the ultimate goal, is I want people, love me or hate me, to understand me through my work. And I would be so honored if that ended up being, my life's purpose. It would be fulfilled that way.
Yeah. I think that's such an interesting thing. It's funny, as I've gotten older, like I'm in my 30s now, I talk about this a lot, but I no longer want to create photos that impress other photographers. You think about that?
Oh, that's a recipe for failure and just for being totally dissatisfied in your life, for sure. Right?
Like it's, and maybe this is, and it's not degrading photographers who might want to do that or whatever, but it's like you got past the craft, and then it was like, what do I want to do with this thing? Right. And I was like, I want to document people's lives. I want to distill, or whatever you said. And it's like,
I don't even remember what I said.
It was great.
So
we'll roll it back.
Thank you.
No, but so it's like I it's almost to the point where now I laugh about this. Like, I'll have a second shooter come, right? I'm like, oh, I need a second shooter for the wedding, right? Like, we booked them for the business, and I get self-conscious because I'm like, they might be so unimpressed by how boring I am on wedding day. Like, I'm pretty fun. I love my couples. I go ham on the dance floor, but
I love that.
That's about it, or at least, but I'm never trying to, like, I'll show you a cool shot if I take it, if I think it's nice. There might be 4 during the day where I'm like, this is a banger, you know, but I'm also excited about like very consistent, boring family formals. And I'm like, mom is going to poop her pants when she sees this photo.
Oh, yeah. And that's important.
Yeah. And I'm like, and again, I was like, I'm not going to win any awards for this. I don't care about this at the creative level, but I care about this like at the legacy level. Like this is the simplest, boringest thing.
And that's what's most important. I used to be all up in my own, like, ew, family photos are the worst. Like when I first began weddings, because that was all ego and saying like, this is stupid. I don't want to do this. So I didn't really put much effort into them. But as I've gotten older and come into my own mature awareness, I go after mom. I go to mom at that wedding on both sides. And I'm like, Mama, tell me what you want today, because I want to give you that photo that you want of your child, because I am a mother. And it's helped me to really see things from the perspective of when my child gets married, if that photographer doesn't come and say, Mom, what's one photograph I can make for you today? I will hunt her down. And that's just how that's going to be, because it's a huge deal to watch your child grow up and then watch them start their own life. There's an emotional grieving process even, and on some levels that's going to come with that. It has to be that way, because I don't see how this thing that's of my flesh and of my blood leaving my house and going to start their own life is not going to be, it can be beautiful, but I don't know how it's not going to be painful for me to watch. And I would love for someone to honor that side of my life as well.
Yeah.
And so I look to mom and I say, Mom, what can I do for you today? Every single time. And also, this is a great tip so you don't get a bad Google review. Because if anyone's going to leave you a Google review, it's going to be a mom for sure.
That is super true. Yeah, I feel like especially over the last like year and a half with COVID and everything, it's like, guys, you better be paying attention to your Google reviews.
Oh, for sure.
You know,
for
your
sure.
couples can love you, but if mom gets a copy of that contract and she don't like it, you know.
Oh my God. Well, I have that in my contract. I do not speak to parents. That's in my contract.
I love it.
And it's just, I have the language hard, even though I'm really not that way, because I've had some really weird, I mean, I'm sure we all get into that situation where we wish to God that we hadn't done it. And it's usually involving a controlling parent. And I'm just not doing it. I don't have to do it. I'm not going to do it. And I think that nobody should put up with that kind of treatment. So I have that in I don't care who pays for it. I consider it a gift, and that's in the contract language.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think it's one of those things. Yeah, that's a whole other topic of like, why did you put this clause? Why'd you put this clause in your contract? And you're like, well, I had one wedding that I would never, I'd shoot it again, but I would need different boundaries. And here's the boundary.
Yes.
And whatever that is, or like, oh, that was a weird situation. And I do this with, you know, they call it like client experience, but all the time, like I came back from a shoot last night, right after doing this for 10 years or whatever, and, you know, shooting lots of weddings. And I was like, oh, I'm going to change my pre-engagement session email to include a note about this, you know, or whatever. You know, just like okay.
It's ever evolving.
Yeah.
And that I tell my husband every time, I'm like, my contract just got this, and this year it got another page longer. Of course,
everybody's did.
Because I mean, isn't that true? I mean, not even COVID, but just like the things that you don't think about, and they're so individual to, you know, each experience that, you know, but what I do is I have contracts on my site and I just update that one too, just to reflect my own experience, so that photographers who buy it, maybe, you know, I can save them from a little,
they can always take it
hassle.
out. Yeah.
Absolutely. You can make it your own.
No, that's so funny. Yeah. I feel like we had a lawyer on to just talk about contracts and all this kind of stuff. And it's like rescheduling, acknowledgement of COVID-19, all these other things. But even so, like just I feel like over the last year, if you asked me a year ago, I knew what force majeure is.
Force majeure.
I feel like no. I still don't really know the answer, but
dude, a force majeure needs its own Instagram page, because there is a lot of information. Somebody needs to start.
We could start just wedding photography force majeure, or wedding force majeure, or something like that.
Yes,
that'd be really funny. That'd be really funny.
Yeah. It would need a lot of funny memes.
Yeah,
though.
or like
we need a meme
Laurken
maker.
Kendall force majeure of nature, you know, or something.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I love that. I'll be honest. If we started that though, I would probably post one time and never do it again. It's hard enough for me to post to my regular Instagram page. I'm a neglectful mother.
I was going to say you're a lazy Instagrammer. I could tell.
Totally.
But it's a good thing.
Totally.
You know, it's like there's I guess for me, it's like we talked about the evolving thing. There are times when you're grinding and you're like, hey, I have a goal. Like for me, like my kind of joke and like brand position is like, oh, I don't have 10,000 followers, but my rent's paid, my mortgage is paid. I feel pumped.
Oh yeah.
And then
Not success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is cool. Like there's hundreds of Broadway actors. We don't know who they are. And if they can pay rent and get to act on Broadway, like they're a professional actor to me.
Yeah.
But now that we're getting like really close, I'm like 100 away. So I'm like starting to post more, trying to like grind for a season. Like,
inch it up
yeah,
there.
yeah, took a shower today, you know, so I could be on story, like all that dumb stuff. Which everybody like, you don't need to do it. I'm like, no, I feel like I need to do it.
That's such a noob. That's such a noob mistake. You don't need to shower to be on your story.
Yeah.
I also never brush my hair.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I do, and even if it looks good, I'll mess it up because I don't want to give the wrong impression. I don't have it together.
My impression of myself is that people know that I barely have it together, so I want to look like I'm one iota taller than barely. And so they're just like, listen, he tried today. He tried.
And they'll applaud you for that, and they'll feel, kindred with you.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So there'll be a time. I'm sure you'll do something, even with like, I think you just released like what did you just release? We should talk.
A photo will, and we don't have to, give that a ton of time, but basically I called it a photo will. I honestly wish I had called it more like maybe, I don't know, something more general, like a business will, but that's just what I've been called it in my head for 2 years before it actually came out on paper. And it's basically just a document that gets you organized. If you die, if you leave your earthly body and then, tomorrow, and you have a wedding on Saturday and you're in the middle of editing, like what happens to that shit? Your partner, your mom and dad, if you're living at home, somebody is going to have to deal with that mess. Yeah. And so this is just a way of, I actually came up with this while I was doing my own will. And my attorney was talking about my business. And after that meeting, I was thinking, my husband's going to have no idea what to do with this. So it's basically like you pick a person, you pre-discuss this with them, you outline your workflow, you have your login somewhere, you have a list of all the accounts that are related to your business that will have to be canceled, like your Adobe, your Honeybook, things like that. And it's just, it was a shit ton of work. I'm not going to lie to you. That whole process is very thorough, but I think it's so worth it. And it's just to be kind to the people that you love who are already having the stress of your loss, make things easier on them to help get your business out of the way so that they can move on. With cleaning up, picking up the pieces of their life.
I love that. I love that we were joking about Instagram because I was like, oh, you've posted on Instagram recently because you put out this thing. But the photo will, that's like that's one of those things. Again, that's why this podcast exists. And nobody talks about that at all. And like, I ride a motorcycle. I've
never
like we should talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what it is. We all do these things. And even if you don't live a dangerous life, you know, anything could happen. Your roof could cave in on your head while you're on the toilet. I mean, these are things that are within the realm of realistically happening, which is terrifying. Don't get too crazy thinking about it. But it's just better to have a plan than to not have a plan, because all you're doing if you don't have a plan is causing suffering to the people you love most, even more than what's already gone on. So that's really where that came from.
I love that.
Was just me wanting to say hi, and guess who's I call him the representative. My representative who will be taking over my business is Brooke Johnson, who I forced into friendship. I'm like, guess what? I love you so much.
That's awesome.
But she did give her permission because it is a lot of work and there's a lot of considerations. I mean, that document took me a really long time just to get it all laid out because there's so much to it.
No, that makes sense. I always joke with my wife about it. Like, this is so fun. I'm going to go buy this right now. But we talk about
I'll send it to you. You don't need to buy it.
I appreciate that. But we'll I have a funny joke that I shouldn't use after this. But like, I talk about this all the time. And she's always like, even in our personal life, like, this is a terrible example, but we'll say like, I've kind of been over the last few years, like studying and investing in the crypto space and like looking about that and just like, okay, let me look at this. What's going on with here? And, so we have like not a ton, but we have like something in there as like part of our retirement or like whatever your stuff is, right? You have your 401k and you have this and all these grown-up things, right?
I have gold buried. So that's my retirement.
I love it so much. Of course you would.
Of course I would.
My wife always asks me though, she's like, what am I going to do if you die? And she always jokingly says that because it's like we share a 1Password, which is like all of our passwords in this app. And she saw how many logins I have for everything. And, most millennials have a lot, right? You got your Facebook, your Twitter, your TikTok, whatever.
Oh my God.
She saw mine and it was like 650 logins or something.
Oh shit.
And I was like,
Yeah, you are a mean person.
yeah. Well, so
Just make it all one, make it all one password. Do what I
yeah.
do. It'll be fine, I'm sure. I'm
Well,
sure
that's the
that'll
trick.
work
She
out.
only has to know the password to the app, and then it'll unlock all of those. So, yeah. So,
Okay, so I need to know the name of that app because I didn't put a recommendation for, I mean, that's amazing. I didn't put a recommendation in there for an app. I said basically, you can use an app, but I didn't recommend an app. So I might update my little README that comes
I'll
with
text you
that
after
photo
this.
well.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah,
literally
I would love
called
that.
One Password. But I'll text you too.
Sweet.
I might have a referral link or something that we get like a month free or something
Oh
stupid.
my.
But
Oh my. Okay,
it's super
great.
cool. It's like underrated for people like us who like, you know, because like the effort. This podcast is so amazing because we've talked about all kinds of shit. And now we're talking about
Truly.
strong passwords.
Truly.
So
Uh-huh.
the effort for any of us to create a strong password or one that like the website wants, right? Or it's like, hey, you should do it a little bit stronger, sweetie. Whatever is kind of high.
How condescending, BTW. Like every time I enter a password, my Mac is like, that is a horrible password. Why don't you use our strong password? And I'm like, I can't remember your strong password.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're basically like it feels like mansplaining, but it's like robot splaining.
Yeah, no, it
Yeah.
is. It absolutely is. Stop being a
Yeah,
nanny.
but they so like that effort is hard, right? And so luckily this app makes it so easy. And then so now what I do, I actually do the opposite. I set it'll be like, hey, it can be 32 to 100 characters. I'll be like, I'm setting this ish at 100 every time. Like, I want the safest, hardest to crack, thing as possible.
Oh my
So
God.
it's
Okay, so what happens if is there a worst case scenario within that app where everything kind of gets
Yeah,
lost?
so there's risk with everything, of course. And as far as I know, the app is encrypted, so that's why it's like a big thing. Like you have a master password and a secret key, so two different things that
Oh
open this
my,
up.
it's like Indiana Jones. That's very
Kind of,
cool.
and again, this is for anybody who is in the crypto space and has a secret key to their cold wallet. This is also similar to that, but
Oh my God. See, I don't even know what you're talking about
we
right
have
now.
lots to talk about the rest of the year. So, but yeah, it should be pretty secure as far as like preventing hacker and anybody else. And then as far as I know, the rest of the stuff is like run on servers, which servers are pretty redundant. It'd have to be a huge
Yeah.
outage. Something like Amazon Web Services would have to go down everywhere for it to be out. But then you have your local copy on your computer too, so you should be
Okay.
golden. But it syncs to your phone too.
Well, cool. Send me
Yeah,
that.
it's
Yeah.
so awesome. Like this is such a one password ad, but like I have a VA who helps me like 10 hours a month or whatever, like nothing.
Nice.
And
Very
you can literally
nice.
just share like your husband and you can share a vault of passwords and you just share like the Netflix one, the Google one, the kid's doctor appointment one, all that BS. I think it's so
Do kids have password protected doctor's appointment things?
I don't have any kids, but I heard this example early on a podcast where two parents, wanted login to the health insurance app. It's the same login to see about Johnny's checkup, so whatever.
Okay, I
Yeah.
see. I don't do that.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I don't know
Well, 'cause
anything
now,
about that. My kids barely go to the doctor, maybe once every 2 years.
I love it. Well, like it now it's being out here in DC, like and maybe this is everywhere, but like our doctors, it's like you check in with a QR code if you want, to not have paper or whatever. So it's just
Oh
log
my
into it on your
God.
phone or whatever. So that's that can all be in there.
That's never going to come to where I live. I literally live in a tiny, tiny town. And it's basically, it's like exactly what you would imagine a tiny town to be. It's got a main street. It's called Main Street and the hospital's at the end of it. And when I give birth there, I have the whole maternity ward to myself. That's kind of the situation that
I love it
we're in here.
so much.
But you get the best service ever.
Yeah. No, 100. How far do you live from Seattle? Like Seattle proper, I guess.
Like 5.5 hours.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I'm on the opposite side of the state. I'm actually closer to the Idaho border than I am to
Okay.
anything going on that
So
side.
do you normally fly out of Boise or not that close? Like where do
No, Boise is another 6
Okay.
hours into Idaho. I fly out of Spokane.
Okay.
Spokane is an hour from me. Everything is an hour from me. When my kids were in school, I homeschool my children
Yeah.
now. But
We
when my
can
kids
tell.
were in
I'm just
school,
kidding.
we would, it's basically like a giant experiment on my own children.
I love it so much.
When they were in school, it was like a 30-minute drive one way to take them to school. And it just gets old, the driving. But the good thing is I can't order Uber Eats. So
I heard
if I
this.
want ice cream, I can't go get it. It's really nice.
Yeah, that was one of my potential first questions other than TED Talks in Iceland, because I like to just ask something off the wall, was going to be like, what's your ideal cheeseburger right now? Yeah.
I would love a cheeseburger right now, though. But I'm on Whole30, so way to bring it
Yeah,
up. Thank you.
Yeah, you could just go have some, dried dates for dessert later today.
Yes. Can't wait.
Some sweet potato fries.
It sounds delicious.
I know.
Yeah, that's literally all I'm eating, sweet potato fries and like shredded chicken and avocado. That's basically my diet for the last 18 days.
You're a farmer and an educated person. What is the deal with purple sweet potatoes? Have you seen this?
Okay, first of all, yes, but sweet potatoes are not a potato. They are in the morning glory family. So while we call them potatoes, they're actually not in the potato family.
Okay.
Yes, I grow sweet potatoes. I mean, okay, let me rephrase that. I try to grow sweet potatoes every year. I don't have a long enough growing season in my climate to make that happen. I am going to build I'm like right by the road. And so when a car drives by out here, we're like, hey, who's driving by? So I just kind of like react. But yeah, potatoes, they need a lot of heat, but they're just a different kind. The purple are just a different kind. They're super yummy. I think they're called I don't want to get this right. I think they're called Japanese jewels. Yeah. Maybe that's not correct.
I'd seen them.
That's probably not correct.
I'd seen them like, there's a lot of like Central and South American potatoes, which you do as an American, you seldom think of that. Like, unless you know farming, like I was always like, oh, Idaho, duh. Like, but yeah, I saw those like a long time ago. And then I saw like somebody I view as like are very cool and hip with it. Like, it's the new kale. They're like, oh, purple sweet potatoes is the new kale. What's up? And I'm like, wait, what?
What's up? Yeah. I mean, they taste exactly. I find all sweet potatoes to taste. I personally like the white flesh sweet potato as opposed to like an orange yam. Yeah. Where have we gone wrong on this conversation that this is where we are?
I don't know if you saw this maybe we didn't see it in the emails. In my email, it says mashed potato lover. So we're right where we need to be.
Okay, perfect. Yes. Yeah, I wouldn't consider myself a mashed potato lover, but I do make some killer mashed potatoes.
All we need.
At Thanksgiving every
year.
That's
all we need. You'll make mashed potatoes. It's totally fine. Servant's heart. And you'll come to Iceland, no matter what.
Okay, perfect. We will go on the quest with all of your clients.
100%
through Iceland.
Yeah, it'll be the best, worst guided tour ever. So,
yeah, I think I already quit that.
We're at the airport, and you're the only one who hasn't showed up yet, and we're just like, "Where's Laurken?"
I'm queen of a French exit. I will just leave.
Yeah.
And I will not say anything. That's how I prefer to get out of situations that I don't want to be in. I will just French exit, get the car started. I'm coming.
I love that. Well, that's something I've learned now is that as we all become hopefully more emotionally intelligent, we'll just say that's what Laurken needs to do, and if it offends us, we'll just talk to her about it, and we'll see. And
I mean, you can try to talk to me, but I don't know that I'm that easily changeable, and I'm kind of like set in my ways especially as far as a French exit goes. I have found that to be very successful. So if it's working for me, I
love it. Awesome. Well, tell me what you got going on this year. We got the photo will, which I think is awesome. That's such a cool idea. I did not even think about talking about that on the podcast, because I'm an idiot. But
well, you don't have to.
No, it was cool. It's super useful. And it's all like many things. It's like, look, we can talk about this. I'm going to do a little self promo for a second. I know it's my podcast.
Go for it.
On Patreon, I have a whole video of me explaining like very basic, like, hey, here's how I save my money that comes in. Here's where it goes for retirement. Here are some app suggestions, like very basic. Like, obviously, I'm not a financial advisor by any means, but I'm like, hey, like freelancers, we suck at this. We never talk about this, and we're usually like 37 by the time you go talk to your financial advisor. So I'm like, hey, here's what I have. Patreon's like $10 to join. No one wants to go see that video, right? We've got our Patreon crew, but it's like people always ask in our Facebook group, and I'm like, guys, there's a link right here, $10.
It's literally just click it, just click it,
and it's so funny. It feels there's a terrible joke, but it's the photo will. It's like, guys, the sooner you at least know what you should be thinking about, the better your life will be. So
it's just responsible and kind.
Especially if you're in a relationship.
Those are maybe the two things you should strive for. Yeah, it really is. And people don't know what to do with your business. Yeah. And especially something unique. I mean, like any type of person that's an independent contractor, when you're in the middle of a project and you die, what happens, So that's something that you should have a plan for. I mean, you don't even have to use my template for it. You just need to make your own. Just to do the right thing for the people in your life.
Yeah, totally. You need to have like a in case of emergency kit, for your business.
For real. I know there's a podcast called Crime Junkie, and they have a file that you can download, and it's like in case I go missing. It's kind of that situation where all of your information is compiled in the event of your death, so someone can pick up where you left
I
off.
love that. So are we going to become true crime best friends too?
I mean, I would accept that.
We just
Yes.
listened. I'll find it for you. We just listened to another true crime podcast we found. I only think it's like 7 or 8 episodes, but it's about you might have heard this before. It's from Wondery. Have you listened to all the Wondery ones?
I have listened to some. I'm not going to say all
Okay.
with
Because there's
confidence.
one, and it's like the Jewish lawyer dies and gets killed. But sorry, obviously you assume somebody dies.
I'm trying. Yeah, no, I don't know that
Okay,
one. I was
I'll send
thinking
it to you.
it might sound like one, but I think that was a
Okay.
therapist in Long
Of
Island.
course, Long Island.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I'll send it to you. We'll have lots of recommendations. Awesome. Well, hey, where can people go to find out more about what you're doing? Where can people go to find the photo will? And what do you have going on the rest of this year?
Okay, well, you can just go to Larken Kendall, and that has a U in it. It's LaurkenKendall.com. And if you go to For Photographers, you will find all kinds of things up in there. There's an article called Unsolicited Advice, which was way back when COVID began, which maybe I should take a look at and see if I need to make changes to that because we were all in a weird place, let's be honest. And then there's products there. I have all kinds of stuff in there if you're interested. And then as far as the year goes, I have a ton of weddings. I mean, like I have a ton of weddings, and it's kind of one of those things too, where I thought we had the schedule settled from, the move overs from last year and then the new bookings. But then the spring weddings and early summer, they're like, no, we're all moving to October, November. And now it's like, I have weddings on Tuesdays. Like I don't think I've ever had an actual Tuesday literal wedding before, maybe an elopement, but it's going to be chaotic. I will definitely be crying somewhere around the end of September. Just, from the overwhelm of of traveling so much, but also that's when our farm is at its peak of activity as well, because I come home and I get in the truck and I drive truck for harvest. So I'm hauling wheat to the elevator, and then I'll get back on the airplane on Thursday, come home on Sunday, do it all again to get us through. So it's rough to have two jobs at that, that are both at the peak of their activity.
I love that. We, two things, because this podcast is never going to end. I'm so sorry. You have to get back to everything.
No, you're fine.
One, LaurkenKendall.com without a U is available. Might be like $10.
if you're interested.
Yeah, to do like the redirect.
I think that someone should buy that.
Yeah, I thought about buying it as a gift and like redirecting it.
You should just buy it.
And then two, pretend that no portraits existed. I volunteer as tribute I would love to come out and like document your family sometime, like just in the peak harvest, like no questions asked. Don't pretend the camera's not there. Adam, don't get in the way. Cause that's like another fascinating level of your life. And just like, you get some of the boys being their weird ass selves. You get husband stuff, probably a few fights about you did the wheat wrong or whatever gets wrong.
You did the wheat wrong. I would love to hear your impression of you did the wheat wrong.
So no, I think that's awesome, because that's like that's the next level. You had your best friend do some sick portraits of you around the farm, and now it's like, okay.
Yeah, she actually documented our harvest last year, and it was an experience. But we had a learning curve too, because she wasn't sure what to expect as far as how the schedule goes, and then it's a kind of a rush and kind of a blur situation. So she's like, next time we're going to do it this way. But I love them. I mean, they're very meaningful to me. And we took family portraits covered in dirt after working all day. My 11-year-old drives the tractor all day long with a big bank out wagon attached, which is like a massive wagon that we fill wheat into also. And he dumps into my truck and I run loads, and it's a real family operation. I think people have a lot of misconceptions, and, when they hear farmer, they think podunk, redneck, ding, 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 ding. It's just not that way. We're a modern farming family. It's an interesting dynamic, but I embrace every side of my life. And I think that the photography supplements, me in the way that I get to get out and go to cities, because like I said, I grew up half of my life in New York. I lived in Queens and half of my life in Texas in a small town. So I have this dichotomy, and my lifestyle currently supports both of those people.
Yeah, I love that so much. Well, Laurken, thank you so much for coming on. It was an absolute pleasure
Thank you for
Yeah.
having me. I'm still confused why I'm here, but I would like to thank you for even asking
Yeah.
me to be on this, and it's an honor. And if I'm sure nobody's listening now, so I'm sorry for everybody that I turned off in your audience. But I thank you for this opportunity
Yeah.
and just for the interesting
No,
conversation.
you're on here because you matter and you're interesting. You have a story, uh, and you were wanted. People wanted you, and so
Well,
that's why you're on here.
probably not anymore, but thank you so much for, I mean, that's touching. Just that people even want to hear things come out of my mouth. They probably have instant regret, but God bless them. Thank you so much.